So, Michael, the coronavirus has taken hold of the world. We are officially in a pandemic across the globe, and this has had severe repercussions for sporting events. The Premier League, the NBA has cancelled, which is very devastating to myself. But at least Liverpool might not win the league, so, there's a silver lining and all that. But in terms of movies, we've already had James Bond cancelled. And now Fast and Furious 9 is going to be put back 11 months and released in April 2021. So that is quite stunning, really. I guess the rollout of this movie isn't going to be fast and furious, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Well, on the subject of things which are fast, what they really should have done is this should have come out when Sonic originally decided to be pushed back, and then it would have been the perfect excuse for them.
What about Mulan, Michael? Mulan is going to be released soon, and it's going to be right in the middle of the coronavirus.
Should be called Wuhan.
Well, that's the thing. Are people, are Americans or people in England going to go see that movie when it's got some Chinese people?
No, that just occurred to me. Fast and Furious 9, their whole thing is Corona. Like, they're obsessed with Corona.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I just realised that. Like, literally, they're always like, oh, we're going to share a Corona. We're going to share a Corona with the whole family. Family's the most important thing, getting together, sharing a Corona. That's my Vin Diesel impression.
Sounds like Vin Diesel.
Hello there, my name's Vin Diesel.
It's a very weird thing to live through. And obviously, I think I'm going to live through it, and you are too, because we're not 78 years old.
I know. The thing is, I was reading in the Financial Times, flexing on what I read. They were saying, maybe it will actually be just a seasonal thing that comes back. The flip side, so if it's a seasonal thing, that's good, because it means it will go in a couple of months. But then they were saying, hey, it might just come back. And eventually it will just be, like the actual flu, which kills tens of thousands of people hundreds of thousands of people in the Western world every year. So, like that.
Let's hope that doesn't happen then.
Yeah. Anyway, that's that.
What a nice thing to end on.
Yeah, well, I mean, hoping that lots of people don't die is good. I mean, sure, it's sad that they might die, but the important thing is we're hoping they don't. Which is literally the opposite to what we said last week. Last week we were just like,
it's got so much more serious.
I know, yeah, now we're actually worried they might die, and we wish them all the best.
Yes.
Okay, that's that.
Right, there we go. Covering our tracks.
Speaking of boomers, Mel Gibson. Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we watch films that have come out in the near and distant past. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host, Michael, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Luke. And this week we are celebrating the 20th anniversary of What Women Want, starring Mel Gibson. And Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about what women would like?
Well, I don't really know, Michael, because I'm not... Oh, you're talking about the movie. Oh. Okay, so What Women Want is a 2000 American romantic fantasy comedy film written by...
Is that what they want? To be fair, a lot of women do want that, a 2000 American comedy film. They are really popular with a lot of people.
No, they are. Certainly. Yes, a generation of women really like these rom-coms from the 90s and 2000s and wish they'd go back to making those kind of movies. But what do we get nowadays, Michael? Freaking Mulan, Sonic.
Yeah.
Where are the? Where's the
What Women Want remake?
Yeah, well, there was a What Men Want, which was remade in 2019. Did you know
Holy
that?
Shit! I did not know that. We should have done What Women Want then. Luke, why'd you always drop the ball?
Because it wasn't that big a movie.
It was the net last week.
It wasn't that. Yeah, it wasn't that big a movie. Anyway, so What Women Want is a 2000 American romantic fantasy comedy film written by Josh Goldsmith, Kathy Usper, and Diane Drake. Directed by Nancy Myers and starring Mel Gibson and Helen Hunt. Wow, aren't women specific, eh? They want exactly that now. Let's stop doing that. As mentioned, it stars Mel Gibson and Helen Hunt, also Marissa Tomei, Lauren Holly, Mark Feuerstein, and Alan Alda. It was released on December 15th, 2000. It's actually released in 2001 in the UK. And Michael, can you tell me what the budget was for What Women Want?
6 million.
What?
6 million?
Are you serious?
I guess, okay, so I guess Mel Gibson probably commands a lot of money, but, I mean, it's a rom-com, so they didn't have to do special effects, but I guess, I mean, obviously maybe for Mel Gibson they spent loads of money.
And Helen Hunt and Marissa Tomei.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, it's quite star-studded. Let's bump it up. 26 million.
70.
70 million?
Yeah.
And that's just actors.
Yeah, just actors and...
there's, I mean, and obviously that fantastic electricity lightning effect.
Yes, we can't forget that, yes. And cinematography as well was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I think sometimes the acting budget does throw me off. But yeah, in that case, I was never even going to get close.
No. And can you tell me what the box office was?
6 million. No, I guess this film probably made money back, but let's say it maybe made just 115 million.
No, a lot higher.
A lot higher, okay. 195 million.
374. Tell you, again, rom-coms, there's a reason why we said earlier, rom-coms in the 90s to early 2000s, they were very popular. This is why they pulled in a whole bunch of money, especially when you got...
I would have just thought, it's the kind of thing women would watch, on their own on Netflix while eating some popcorn.
Yeah, back in 2000.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But apparently they had to go to the cinema back then.
Well,
get the projector running.
I saw this was the second highest grossing romantic comedy film ever on an article I saw. So I don't know what the first one is.
Okay, I was just going to say that's important information. We need to get that done.
I think it might be My Big Fat Greek Wedding, because I just remember that being very successful, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So maybe that's something that I'll look at when you're doing your nitpicks. That makes sense,
yes.
Right? Yes. Anyway, so we'll get on to, did we like the movie first, Michael? So did you?
No, I mean, there were bits I liked, but I can't say overall I liked the movie.
Okay. Yes, I did not like What Women Want either, I have to say.
I disliked it more the second time I watched it.
Okay, that's interesting.
So yeah.
Okay.
Well, sometimes we like to, as I said, at the beginning, we say it, but it's not just a thing we say. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. In this case, my first impression was less negative than my evaluation beyond first impressions.
You're right. It's not just a catchy slogan.
Yeah, this is true. We really mean it. Every word of it.
Okay, Michael. So on to nitpicks now. How many did you have?
Again, I feel like I easily could have got more, but I only got 3. How many did you get?
I got 8.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense to me completely. So, this is the first one, and this is, such a basic one, but it just needs to be pointed out. People don't have a literal internal narrative. People's thoughts are kind of conceptual. And that's not to say, obviously sometimes people have an internal monologue or internal narrative, if they're thinking about, oh man, why did I say that in that conversation? It was so stupid. But most of the time, especially impulsive thoughts, just things you naturally think, you don't actually think them in your head. You just go, oh, I want some pizza. But you don't think to yourself, I want some pizza. You just, the idea of pizza enters your head. So yeah, people, and obviously this is a thing in every single mind reading film where people just literally think what they think. When he's looking at the photos and she's like, there's no way he's going to know it's a Margaret bloody bloody blah. And he's like, oh, it's a Margaret bloody bloody blah. Anyway, so now I'm going to spend a long time talking about this, the fact that he was relying on getting hit by lightning the second time round when he tried to electrocute himself, even though that's not how he got electrocuted the first time round. He fell into the bathtub, so I don't know why he'd just not do that again. Why it was like, oh, this time lightning. Why you want to spice it up?
Yeah.
Come on, Luke, validate me.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Good. Yeah. And finally, and this one's quite a big one. Why wouldn't the boss believe Darcy's input was valuable? There's this whole thing at the end where the boss is like, oh, I had to fire Darcy because, she wasn't even talking the whole time, blah, blah, blah. And Melgon's like, hey, no, everything that was good about me, she was contributing to it. And it's like, no, don't be stupid. Why are you just saying that, blah, blah. And you think to yourself, it's not difficult. You don't have to have the whole he can mind read thing to imagine that 2 people might work well together. And that even though one person might be the person who presents the results, if they're telling you that another person they're working with is important to your process, you wouldn't just be dismissive of it. He's like, well, obviously she didn't do anything because she was just sat there in silence. And Melgon's like, no, working with her. And that's the thing, if you just interpreted what he said in a normal way, you'd be like, okay, what he's saying is that working with her made him more creative and that having her to bounce ideas off made him more productive, and that ultimately as a team they were really effective even though he was the one who's reading information. But instead the boss is just blah, blah, blah. The boss for some reason just doesn't understand, and I thought that was stupid.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I know, I get it. You wouldn't want to fire someone after you had the most successful thing that's ever happened in your company. Someone who was... Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'd be like, okay, let's keep this thing together. Very rash decision from Alan Alda.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, literally, at some point, when Melgon's trying to explain, it's like, you'll be the one getting the settlement from the company if you fire her, which is literally true. If this guy runs this company and he can't tell that there might be such a thing as a good working kind of dynamic relationship where it might be the case that not everyone is directly contributing, not everyone is presenting the facts, but that doesn't mean that not everyone is involved, then he's an idiot and he should be fired.
Okay.
Anyway, what are your 8?
Well, I just wanted to tell you, Michael, that I was absolutely 100% correct. The highest grossing rom-com ever is My Big Fat Greek Wedding, which came out in 2002.
Yeah.
So
I bet Greece wish they were the highest grossing country.
Yeah, that's great. Well, anyway, shout out for me for knowing that. My knowledge of rom-coms is exceptional.
That's true, yeah. You are what women want.
Yes, okay, so my first nitpick then. Why does Mel Gibson place a picture of himself as a kid above his bed? Like, that. This is where he has sex, right? With all these women that he brings home, that we are told that happens regularly, and yet he has a picture of himself as a kid just above it. It seems kind of weird.
No, you gotta. Well, as a marketing man, you got to lock down that paedophile demographic.
Okay. Anyway, so Sarah Paulson, Mel Gibson's assistant. No way does she get paid minimum wage. She would get paid so much more than a minimum wage. For doing that job. No chance.
Although you've got to remember that back then, minimum wage was probably a living wage.
No,
because I feel like. No. I mean, I don't know because obviously the big thing with. Well, no, but the big thing with minimum wage now is it's not been adjusted for inflation in ages. But surely then it must have been reasonably close.
No.
Unless this was just before it was adjusted for inflation.
No, it's a minimum wage in America. And even in the UK, it's always been, maybe not in the UK around that. I think it was brought in 1997 in the UK. So maybe around then it was good. But in the US, no, that has not been the case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, surely, I mean, all the Bernie bros like to talk about how great it was back in the 70s. And they'll be like, oh yeah, man, in the 70s, everything was fine.
I don't think they do.
Well, I'm making that up, but...
Okay, well, we'll move on now. Okay, so the therapist does not get too flustered about Mel Gibson's ability to read women's minds.
She needs to smoke, Luke. I mean, that's shows she's pretty shaken.
Yeah.
She's resorting to the devil's leaves.
She just says, you can be, have so much power, you can be the king, you can do whatever you want. And then Mel Gibson's like, yeah, I can, and that's it. She doesn't... This is mind-altering power that he has.
Yeah.
Mind-reading power, which is mind-altering to her. Yeah, all right, well... you have a good day, Mel Gibson. Make full use of that. And I'll just continue with my job as normal. Next one. I want to know what Mel Gibson thought about the assistant's boyfriend who was living in Israel. So when he found out that he was, I would have loved it if he would have said to her, dump him. And she goes, why? Because he isn't thinking about my career. And he just goes, yeah, that's it. Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, her boyfriend did kill Jesus. You've got to remember that.
Well, okay, next snippet was linked into the last one. Mel Gibson accepts a yarmulke, which is just... I have no idea why that's in the movie. There's no need for it to be. Like, why is the boyfriend in fucking Israel and not, I don't know, in fucking Miami? I don't know, just some fucking city that's in America but really far away from Chicago. I don't know. Maybe. It's
because... there was this one Jewish guy who was like kind of a studio executive, and he was like, I'm not going to do the voice because I'm a hero. So he was like, we need to get more Jews in this film. We need more Jewish references. And then that planted the seed in Mel Gibson's head. He thought, man, this Jewish guy has a lot of control over Hollywood. He thought to himself.
And the therapist says oy vey as well.
Yeah, I know, exactly. And then he thought to himself, man, they're sure. He was working on this film, and as he was working on this film, he was getting red-pilled in his own head, and he was thinking, man, there's a lot of Jews, a lot of just Jewish influence in this film.
So what women want was
maybe there's Jewish influence in other things, like the World Wars, he thought. So basically, I'm saying that this film is what turned Mel Gibson into an anti-Semite.
This kickstarted Mel Gibson's anti-Semitic, stances.
Yeah, this is how he learned about the Zionist occupation government.
Oh my god.
First of all, they infiltrate our rom-coms. Then they, I don't know, what did Jews like to do? Circumcise us?
Yeah, that's what they did. That's the next movie, yeah. Oh god. And his next big movie was Signs, so yeah, there's something there, I guess.
The sign of David.
Okay, next one. Mel Gibson has the ability to hear thoughts over the phone.
That's true, yeah. He does.
I mean,
you are right.
I thought, he could just hear the thoughts of women who are next to him.
Yeah, proximal to him.
Yeah, but apparently it doesn't matter if the woman is, miles and miles away. As long as he can hear them, it's fine. So can he hear women's voices who are, on the TV then? Does it extend to that?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, because obviously the logic would be brainwaves apparently travel in the same way that voice waves do over the phone.
Yes.
So the question becomes, do they travel in the same way that voice waves do over the TV? And also, I mean, like, what about, for example, typing to somebody, like sending somebody an email? I mean, because obviously there you're getting their text waves. So do their brain waves get transported there too?
Oh my
Who knows?
God. Last one.
What a mess.
Yeah, last one. I don't know what the deal is with the magical Chinese lady. I assume she's magical because Mel Gibson, literally before he turns back to normal, looks at this Chinese lady who smiles at him. So again, is that just like a stereotype? Like, oh, she's from East Asia, she's old. She knows what's happening to Mel Gibson, and therefore he's learned his lessons so that he can go back to normal now. Because that's the fucking sense that this movie is trying to portray. I'm really not sure though why that was the case at all. Very weird.
I really wish that we got to see him buy his hairdryer, because I'm 100% guaranteeing that he bought it from a creepy old shop in Chinatown. And the guy said, beware, this comes with a grave evil ability.
See, you're stereotyping now, Michael. You're doing tropes.
Well, I know what I'm saying is that I wish they would have committed themselves to the stereotype.
Oh, the full stereotype.
Because it's kind of like, because it's like, as things stand, it's almost like, why is it there? They were just like, well, you gotta have a Chinese lady. I mean, it's about some white guy developing magical powers. You gotta have some weird Asian person in there somewhere.
Yeah, someone who's not from the Western world. Yeah,
some Asian guy, Asian woman smiles at him.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Okay. Right. So those are all my nitpicks. But there is one more nitpick actually I have for me, which is last week I didn't do the right microphone for recording. I instead did my laptop microphone instead of the Yeti microphone that I have, and that's why my audio was so bad. And so I wholeheartedly apologise for that.
Well, we'll let people comment below if they forgive you.
Yeah.
Remember, if you forgive Luke, dislike this video. If you don't forgive him, subscribe. I'm banking on the fact that people won't forgive you. But yeah, you definitely got it on the right one now, have you, Luke?
Shit.
No, check on
pretty sure
Audacity.
Yeah.
Phew.
No, I knew I did, but I just wanted to make sure. Because if I didn't, then that would be embarrassing. Anyway,
who made you such a hypocrite? Just like there, and everyone just comes like, Luke, I can't hear what you're saying. He's trying to apologise for his shitty microphone, but I can't hear it because his microphone's too shitty.
Shall we get onto the plot now?
Yes, the plot.
Yes.
What a plot, eh?
What a plot. Yes. So Mel Gibson plays Nick Marshall, a Chicago advertising executive and alpha male, who basically is a chauvinist and skilled at selling products to men and seducing women. He expects a big promotion at the advertising firm Sloan Curtis, but his manager instead announces that he's hiring Darcy McGuire to broaden the firm's appeal to women. So there you go. So then she gives Nick a bunch of products to look at, feminine products. Nick, while he's trying on these feminine products, falls in a bath, electrocutes himself with a hairdryer, and then can magically know or read women's minds. He can finally know what women want. And so he's initially traumatized by his new gift, but then he basically, gets inspired by that therapist and starts taking advantage of it before realizing the error of his ways and then reconciling with Darcy at the end. And they kiss when she fires him for basically stealing her ideas. So yeah, that ending's a bit of a mess. And there's some B plots and C plots along the way, which we'll get
let's
into.
not forget the random suicide.
The suicide plot. Oh god, whose idea was that? Right, so let's get into the plot then, Michael. Yes, I guess. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of. It's what is interesting, I think, about this is the redemption thing, because I do wonder. Of course, like he gets a redemption arc, but I do find it interesting how far characters can go in movies for them still to get like an arc in a romantic comedy. You think about it, Mel Gibson, who plays a human being, he wasn't that great, and he the audience is encouraged to root for him when he finally accepts women as human beings. What do you think about that?
I thought it was, it was beautiful in a way because I remember like I haven't said this yet. I was watching it with my sister the second time round, and she said, is it going to be like a really sexist film? Because my sister, she's conscious of these things, and I said, well, in theory,
good for her.
It's
by
about,
the way, good for her.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. She's a real feminazi. I said, in theory, it's about a guy who is sexist, and then he learns not to be sexist. and she looked skeptical in accordance with in theory. And that kind of is how it is, because I mean, for example, she objected to when he's walking through her room with her, or her new apartment, and he's like, "Oh, you can have all these elegant parties here. Of course, you'd be naked and I'd be the only one there." And she was like, "I don't know, it seems like an inappropriate thing to say to a woman that a woman actually wouldn't really like to hear on a first date." And I was like, you know what? Sounds like you know what women want, Ellie. That's my sister's name. Point being that it seems like it didn't really change that much. And like you say, I mean, he stays bad for so long. And there is a very obvious structure to this. And here's the thing, I will say it's a good idea in some sense, the idea for the film. You know, a sexist guy, then is sexist and doesn't understand women. Then he gets the ability to understand women. And initially he uses it for evil. He uses it to exploit women and to basically get one over on them. And then eventually he uses it for good and decides to try and understand women. That's the idea on paper, and it's a good idea. I don't think that early 2000s America is an appropriate place to try and realize that idea. Nor do I think today would be a particularly good time, although I think we'd be slightly better at it now. But it's very muddied in a way it doesn't need to be. And obviously there is the fact that you have this random suicide girl who's like, and like as we'll get into the end, especially when I watched it the first time and I was thinking about it, I was thinking they've got so much shit to wrap up. When she just found out that Darcy was being fired, and I was thinking, holy shit, he's got to go see her. But first of all, he's got to see the suicidal lady. Then he goes see her. Then he's got to go to the prom. Then he's got to go back to see her again. And I was thinking, they've really it's like Game of Thrones. They've left themselves with way too much to wrap up here. And you just think it should have been a much more concise plot, to put it mildly.
Yes, all of the plot threads have to be wrapped up in like 10 minutes. Let's talk about the other plots, because you've got this, typical cliche B-plot. He's not close to his daughter, not very interesting, and he's trying to get closer throughout the movie. And manages to succeed in the end by, when his daughter confesses to him that she'd broken up with his boyfriend because she didn't want to have sex with him. And he's like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you." And they hug it out. So yeah, I mean, nothing too much there. Not very entertaining, to be honest. But the C plot, I was really, first time I watched it, I was really surprised. You had a woman wanting to commit suicide, which is not what I expected.
Best thing ever.
And it just gets kind of brushed off when it's first, like, Mel Gibson reads her mind. And I was like, okay, yeah, is that going to come back? And it does. And then it's resolved at the end when he, as you said, breaks into her apartment to see if she's killed herself, which is, exactly what you want to see in a romantic comedy. But yeah, it is like a C plot as well, which I feel like if you're taking on a subject like suicide, and I guess self-worth in general like this, you probably shouldn't have it like a C-plot in a romantic comedy movie. Yeah. I don't think that's the best thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is really strange. And I guess you could say it adds a little bit of something to it, but not a lot of much. Basically, it's just, it feels wildly inappropriate. And definitely, it feels like, I mean, that's the thing, you would have thought logically, I mean, it kind of makes sense, because obviously you don't necessarily want to have the main woman have any of these issues, and therefore I guess if they were going to do it, it should be possibly a little extra thing. But you just think, no, I mean, it's quite serious, I would say, suicide, and therefore I just don't think that you can really make it work as a fun little thing in your romantic comedy.
Exactly.
I'm afraid.
Yeah, I just don't think it should be dealing with that in this movie. But yeah, but good news is she doesn't commit suicide, and she gets the job promotion that she wanted.
I mean, I will say, actually, to their credit, the one thing I was thinking is just like, when he first showed up, I was thinking, are they just going to end this where it's like, some guy has been like nice to me and shown he cared about me, I don't feel suicidal now. And I was thinking, like, is that how they're going to do this? And then ultimately, like, I guess he does offer her a job, which you can imagine would be something that would actually make her feel slightly more happy. So I was like, okay, I mean, at least he's changed something fundamentally about her life, rather than just having it end like, hey, I made sure you didn't kill yourself, so you're not suicidal anymore. But that's the mildest praise I can give this film, and it's all it deserves.
Okay,
well, in that regard, at least.
Okay, sure thing. So yeah, that's the C plot, and yeah, I guess we talked about the main plot of that he gets redeemed. I would just talk about the ending now. I think because it is kind of, when I saw it the first time, again, I'm not surprised by the way it was the ending was originally rewritten, because apparently Helen Hunt was meant to punch Mel Gibson initially. Helen Hunt decided that wasn't a good idea, which I would agree with, to be honest. So how do they end this though? Because they are in love with each other, and Nick has realised the errors of his ways, but also he has completely betrayed her and got her fired. So like it doesn't really the premise that they have, or the situation that they have created in writing this movie, does not really set it up for a nice, happy, romantic comedy ending. So they have this situation where Nick gets his comeuppance, which is he gets fired. Okay, that's what should happen. But also, she is still in love with him, and they still share a kiss at the end, which I don't really think would fit in with what she has just done. And it didn't make sense at the moment. And thinking about it later on, it's like, yeah, no, that doesn't make sense. I don't think someone would fire someone for basically betraying them and stealing their ideas, and then still say, "Hey, I love you. Let's kiss." Just like, even like maybe, I don't know, a week later, but like, because they admitted it and they owned up to it, but 5 seconds later, I'm not sure. So what do you think, Michael? Do you think the ending was a bit haphazard, a bit unrealistic?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't awful, and I guess I can say, being very nice, that I think, maybe the basic idea is true, that you could have disciplined somebody as their boss and yet still think to yourself, you know what, I still do like them though. Having said it, yeah, I think really what they should have done is not had the end be so crammy with loads and loads of stuff going on that needs to be wrapped up, and then made it so the betrayal element could have a time to breathe. I also think it's kind of weird because it's almost like having the second act moment and the third act moment within 5 seconds of each other. Because the way usually it works in these films, it's like there's the moment where obviously the relationship is bad and the characters kind of aren't getting along.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of resolved.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in this case, it kind of feels like that is just crammed into one scene where it's like, oh, you get the punishment for the bad things you've done, but also you get the reward for the, quote, good things you've done. So it's like, oh, you get the punishment for, because what I basically said at the beginning was that the way it works is, he starts off just not caring about women, then he learns to care about women. Oh, sorry, not care about women. He learns to read women's minds, and at first he uses that for evil, and then he uses it for good. And the way the film ends up is that he essentially gets the punishment for using it for evil, and the reward for using it for good, quotes.
Yes.
At the exact same moment. Pretty much. Where she's like, okay, well, you stole my ideas, so you're fired. But also, you're a nice guy, so I love you.
Yeah, you're right. Like, in a competent rom-com, and I've watched a lot of rom-coms in my time, so I know what a competent rom-com should do. You should have, that should happen like half an hour earlier, and then they get back together at the end. And not happen like 5 seconds later.
Yeah, I agree, Luke. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, also, I mentioned when I was going through the plot that he realises the errors of his ways. He realises the errors of his ways quite late on. In the movie, it's like 1 hour and 40 minutes in, he realizes the errors of his ways in a 2-hour movie. And again, it's like there's so much shit that happens in this movie, like because they have to jam in the fucking suicide plot and the plot about his daughter. Like they really are like it's quite bloated. So all the steps that a usual rom-com has to do happens really late on. And of course, we mentioned the fact that. You are right, he gets punished like he should do, but then he gets rewarded for using his powers for good as well at the end. So, in a quick 1-2 punch, but again, him realising the errors of his ways takes a long time as well. So yes, it's not very well structured, I would say, this movie. Yeah. I mean, again, you just cut the suicide plot and, just like lengthen it out a bit, I think it'd be a lot better. And I've got to cut the suicide plot because, it's the C plot. It's not really necessary. And also, you're dealing with an issue which shouldn't be in this movie in the first place. So, that's how to fix this movie. Fix the plot of this movie anyway. What would you say to that?
Yes, definitely. I think you're absolutely right, basically. Just streamline it and maybe work on the... I guess pacing is the right word. I would say this film, to me, like, it doesn't necessarily feel like it's exactly the pacing that's bad, but it's kind of the pacing in relation to the story structure.
Well, I called it
like
bloated.
I said, Yeah, I think that's definitely right. Yeah. It is a really simple idea, and again, I've said it before, but it is such a simple notion of, okay, he starts off, being sexist, learns to read women's minds, so he gets the ability, and first of all, he uses that for his mentality before, which is obviously being a sexist and misogynist, kind of chauvinist.
Yeah.
And then he slowly transitions, probably because he gets his comeuppance, or because someone else gets screwed over. And this would happen at the second act, which should be at the maybe hour and a half mark, maybe hour and 25 mark. And then he learns his lesson and is able to eventually solve a load of problems. So, eventually he's like, hey, I've realized something. And he says, we should not be, maybe even say, hey, we shouldn't be treating women like they're some, this is getting into, but it's just such an obvious conclusion would just be, hey, we shouldn't be treating women like they're a foreign thing that's impossible to understand. Like, I know this is jumping ahead, but it's just like, that should be the obvious message of this film. The obvious message of this film should be, you don't need special powers to understand what women want. You can just ask them, or you can just treat them like normal human beings. And it's like, and I've been holding off saying it because obviously we're going to talk about the gender politics for a minute, but it's so impossible to just not think about how that's the obvious message to this film.
You're getting ahead of yourself. You're getting ahead of yourself. Right.
But basically, the point I'm making more generally is that the structure of, you have him realize, whatever we're going to say that final conclusion should be, you have him realize that a little bit after the point where he is brought low. He's brought low, then he goes through a period of transition, then he realizes the epiphany of the film, the thesis statement of this film, and that's when he gets the girl, because, you got to, because it's a romantic comedy, and that's a fine trope to have in a romantic comedy. In fact, you probably wouldn't say it's a trope in a romantic comedy, it's the point of a romantic comedy. And speaking of romantic comedy, did you think this film was funny?
No.
I thought that some of it was okay, but it's not, overall the film is not funny. I was able to, I guess I would say there were moments that I enjoyed. I didn't laugh at anything, but I enjoyed basically the two goofiest things that happened in the film. And I guess this isn't surprising. I enjoyed the two goofy things. Him trying on all the women's clothes. I thought, this is goofy and I love it. And also the montage of him with his daughter trying on dresses. I just felt like it just felt like suddenly the film became a kind of teenage romantic comedy. And it was you literally just had the scene of him holding up the sign that said how much. And it was just it was so cheesy. And so I guess what I'm saying is I found the film funny, but not for the right reasons. I found the film funny because I found it really goofy and cheesy. So, not when it was, and I guess you'd say this film didn't really try to be that funny. So, I mean, there was some cringe comedy, I guess. And I think that kind of worked. There were some moments where I was cringing, and I think the film kind of wanted you to cringe. Obviously when he is are you sure you've never tried to fake a headache? And he's really kind of drilling it in, and it's it kind of is a bit cringy and it makes you uncomfortable. And I think that's what the film's going for. So I guess insofar as it's cringe comedy, I didn't laugh, but that worked. But yeah, overall, number one, it wasn't that funny. Number two, I didn't think it was even trying to be funny, but I guess there's some goofy moments you can laugh at.
Okay, yes. Anyway, I felt that a lot of the stuff was contrived and stale. That's the words I'd use. The waxing, for instance. By the way, that was noted at the time as being something that's quite stale. Look at how painful it is for men when they try and wax their legs. Oh, women must go through hell. Yeah, there's apparently. I thought it was.
Remember when we waxed Dylan?
What?
We held him down and just waxed his legs.
I don't remember this.
I can't believe you don't. It was he was in such pain. He was please stop.
I remember
it,
Kyle waxing.
Well, no, because Kyle had the wax, and then we forced it upon Dylan.
Was he? Did he not consent then?
No, he said he was begging for us to stop. He was please, guys. No, I mean, no.
Talking about fucking Christ. That's great. Wasn't university just wasn't that year in particular?
That was a good year.
What was I talking about? I was talking about oh yeah. So yeah, the waxing was bad, and also Mel Gibson. This is another example I picked out. Not knowing his daughter's age. Oh, she's 13. Yeah. No, she's actually 50. Ah, my God. Okay, he's a bad parent. I mean, here's the thing. You'd still know. She doesn't. That's the thing. She doesn't even look 13. She looks about 15.
Yeah, she looks quite old. She's probably even. I would bet the actress is older than 15 because usually actresses are older.
She's probably 18.
Yeah,
probably.
Well, to be fair, I don't think my dad knows how old I am. It's he never knows how old I am. I've been asked by my dad, how old are you? So many times. I think basically once I hit 18, he stopped caring. And then I just. But actually, I guess that's it. Yes, that's why.
Well, when you're growing up,
when they're young,
you know the age of your kids.
The years do make more of a difference.
Yeah, they do.
That is it.
Yeah,
because I don't know how old my uncle is because he's just old.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to. You don't need. Anyway, and yeah, one other thing as well is the fucking. There's one black character in this movie, and what's their occupation, Michael?
I don't really know what the term is for what their occupation is. But they're somebody who hails cabs for for people. They're like an usher. No, not an usher. A busboy. Is the term busboy? Is that like a term?
I don't know. I don't think so.
They are what the guy is in the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Okay. Yeah. Concierge. Is that it?
Yeah. I think that's it. It sounds very fancy.
Anyway, that's the one black character in this movie. There's no absolutely everybody that works in Nick's office is white. And yeah, she what did she say to Nick? You find ass looking like Shaft or whatever, like in her brain. It's just like fucking hell, man. Oh god, how stereotypical, cliche, whatever. It's yeah. So basically, that's what I thought about the comedy in this movie. Very dull, stale, boring, contrived, awful, lazy, all of the above. That's what I thought. So yeah, not a fan. Basically, didn't receive. Yeah. Yeah. Let's just move on after that. Yeah, I don't need to say anything else.
Anyway, I think we should talk about the most important thing in this film: the gender politics. And I've got something I'd like to read to you. Firstly,
oh, do you, Michael?
Yeah, it's a novel I've been working on. No, not really. It's from a book called Enlightened Sexism, subtitle The Seductive Message That Feminism's Work Is Done by Susan J. Douglas. As you know, Luke, one of my avid interests as a devout male feminist has been the phenomenon in the 1990s known as girl power feminism or just power feminism. And we've spoken about it before in this podcast, I think, with Charlie's Angels.
Yes, we made reference to the fact that it was probably, this era was probably inspired by the Spice Girls and their girl power thing, and so there's a lot of movies that came out in the...
Yeah, I imagine also with Tomb Raider, even though that was the early 2000s, it carries on.
And we're going to be doing another movie, Legally Blonde, which fits in the same bracket soon, so yes. Yeah, around the early 2000s.
I would imagine Legally Blonde is also mentioned in this book, but she talked about it for a bit, but I'm just going to jump into it a bit, into her little rant. The premise of What Women Want is that Nick Marshall, Gibson, a prime cut of male chauvinist pig, gets electrocuted in his bathtub by a hairdryer, and rather than killing Nick, which was the desired outcome, this allows him to hear what women are thinking. So what does he hear from women as he walks through the park on the way to work? Did I turn the coffee maker off? One kiss doesn't make me a lesbian, does it? No, just being forced into contact with Nick would. Another woman is overheard counting the calories she has consumed so far, and another wonders about the benefits of estrogen. Later in a department store, one woman wonders whether to buy more lipstick, while another says to herself, if he doesn't answer that phone in the next 2 rings, I swear to God. Later, while passing a female jogger, Nick hears her think, I'm 34 and I want a kid. Just like Ally McBeal. That's a reference to an earlier point. When he goes to see his former shrink, she wonders to herself why she answered the door when she was about to buy a lamp on eBay. Not one of the thoughts of the woman on the street is about the substance of her work, a social or political issue, finances, or even one of those concerts the rules said you should let him take you to. Yeah, I know, it was a comedy, but by now, all the interior monologues of these comedies were leaving their stereotypical residue.
So yeah, that was in when Mel Gibson was just hearing random women speak, and I get that. But I think overall, like, you hear what women have to say to him throughout the movie, and they do say to him when they're praising him, like, "Oh, you're so understanding, you're so sensitive, you get it." And so I think, yes, there are some superficial things, and yes, there are some things that it would be stereotypical for women to think about, like estrogen, or, you know, being angry at their husband and all that the men can laugh out and go, "Oh, that's just like my old broad." I don't know, something like that. But yeah, I don't think it's really the case on the whole. I think this movie is gender politics, to be honest. You know, it's kind of like The Net last week. I expected The Net to be worse. I expected this movie's gender politics to be worse than they actually were. There are still some bad elements, which we'll talk about, but I don't think it's too bad overall. What do you have to say, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, see, I'm quite good, as you may have noticed from our notorious Green Book review, at ignoring the problematic elements of a film's messaging. And in this case, I was kind of able to ignore it as well. I do actually agree. It's not necessarily the best critique of the film that could be made. I just read it because it was in the book that I'd read. But, yeah, I've definitely got a few things which I could bring up. And again, I would say there are a lot of problems with the gender politics of this film, but they're all kind of small, if you get what I'm saying. So there's no, like, massive overarching problem with the gender politics of this film, but rather there's lots of little things, which I'd love to go through with you, Luke. Okay,
do you want to do the bad first or the good first?
I'll go through the bad first. Okay. And then you can do the good, seeing as you love this film so much. No. So, number one, Nick's mother is portrayed as being responsible for his misogyny. This is a classic thing that you see. That I actually saw it on Twitter just today. It was somebody tweeted like a load of statistics about men raised by single mothers. They literally had on their bio on Twitter, "The war on men," and it was this, all these statistics about men with single mothers. Again, the point was single mothers are terrible, but it doesn't mention the fact that if you've got a single mother, you've got an absentee father. And in this case, obviously, we're told, why is Nick so sexist? Why is he so misogynistic? Because of his mother. because she worked as a showgirl in Vegas, and she surrounded him by loads of dodgy men. In fact, they said like she made sure he had lots of good influences from the men around him. Point being that it's not the fault of the men around him that he is a sexist. It's the fault of the mother for letting him be around those men. So
yeah, I don't know. Was it specifically blaming the mother?
See, I wouldn't say it was necessary. Again, here's the problem, and this is where it all comes down. It's very subtle. And that's the thing. I mean, you have to bear in mind, obviously, this film, I think, is fair to say, number one, it was made by a woman. And that's actually something we should bring up right away. Or directed by a woman.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, I think there was at least one, if not two men. There was 3 people writing it. I don't know. At least one of those people was a man. I think maybe 2 of them were men. But it was directed by a woman. And therefore, I think what you're likely to see and what you should expect to see in this film is kind of more subtle sexism and subtle misogyny, which might go past even some women. And in this case, yeah, they don't literally say like, oh, this guy's mother's a real bitch. But they do say like, they say he was a sexist, and then they point to why he was a sexist, and the thing they focus on are the actions of his mother as a single mother who slutted it up in Vegas. Again, they don't really say this, but it's there, like, it's a subtext, and that's the thing.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, and this is another one, related, but I think this is significant. They literally say, I don't know if they say these exact words, but I think they say there was nothing normal about the way Nick was raised. What's his surname?
I can't remember his surname. I think it's Marshall, but who cares?
Oh yeah, no, it's Nick Marshall. Yeah, there's nothing normal about the way Nick Marshall was raised. And the point being, again, okay, this guy, he was a real sexist, and there was nothing normal about the way he was raised. And I think that's a significant thing. It's subtle, but it's there. This guy is a huge raving sexist, and he's a sexist. Why are we told he's a sexist? We're told he's a sexist because of the way he's raised. And what are we also told? We're told there's nothing normal about the way he was raised. Implication being that this sexism is an anomaly. Again,
that's a good point.
Now, again, it's there, and it's like an implication. He's not just like, it's not like, why is he sexist? Oh, because he was raised in a society that has systemic patriarchy running through it. No, he's sexist because it's very particular. Nothing normal about the way he was raised. Very minor thing. Well, actually, I say it's a minor thing. The faking a headache thing, obviously. The idea that women have to fake a headache, what's a reference to? It's a reference to the fact that a woman saying she doesn't want to have sex is not enough. And in fact, a man might try and pressure a woman into having sex, even though she doesn't want to. And therefore, a woman has to pretend she has a headache in order to have a suitable excuse for not having sex. Obviously, the fact that women have to fake a headache in order to have sex with somebody would be an example of rape culture.
Okay, but that's the movie isn't endorsing that point of view, though. It's not.
But I feel like the film kind of makes a joke about it. But maybe we'll say fine, okay. I don't know. I feel like it's kind of maybe. I guess it just felt like to me, especially because I already mentioned how it's kind of cringe humor, where he's like, "Come on, have you never done it?" And she's like, and she's acting awkward about it. I don't know. Maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but I kind of felt it saying like, "Look how funny it is that this is what women do, but they don't want to talk about it because they're embarrassed," rather than saying, "Isn't it bad that women have to do this?" I don't know. I mean, that was a minor one. But yeah, I accept that, it's a minor one. And this is also a minor one, but I just want to bring up the fact that his secretaries don't think anything. I don't know. I just thought, So like,
I just think I don't think that was much.
Yeah, you think that was more
that was
like
just like, hey, let's have a joke about the fact that they're done. Yeah. That was it.
Now, this one's a big one. Well, actually, I'm going to leave the big one till last, because that's what you're supposed to do. So I'll just say, minor thing, but when his daughter is talking about the fact that she didn't have sex with her boyfriend, she says he went to kiss some slut with a tongue stud, and again, obviously that's slut shaming, and it's misogyny.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm going to allow it because she was crying and she was incredibly upset. So you know what, Michael? She's allowed to. Go on. You're
always excusing his women, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, again, it's just another example of like, even in the moment where you have this film about somebody who's learning to not be a sexist and he's there with his crying daughter, you still have her speak about another woman's choice to engage in body modification and to slut shame her for it. But okay, finally, this one's the one where
body modification.
Last one I got written, which I think is fun.
You're just I just
wanted to say one other thing. I know. The humor. Just another point of humor, because I just remembered this because it's about the character. I also found it funny when Mel Gibson said, "I'm as gay as it gets," because I just thought that sentence was funny of like, "I'm as gay as it gets." And she was like, "How gay?" And I was like, "I'm as gay as it gets." But on that note, that woman, okay, she says she doesn't want to date him. And Mel Gibson learns to read her mind and he goes to see her. And what is she thinking to herself? She's thinking, "Oh, he's so hot. Why do I keep saying that I don't want him to ask me out when really I do want him to ask me out?" And obviously that's literally saying that, hey, sometimes a woman, she rejects your advances, but really that just means she wants you to kind of keep pushing. And because really she does want to go out with you.
Sometimes no means yes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, to me, I don't know, that's like the big one. I mean, I'd say, that's probably the worst thing in the film. I think that literally the implication, hey, if you could read women's mind, and don't get me wrong, like, I believe that in reality there are women who do that, but to present that in a film carries with is obviously, yeah, when you present a film, you can't just present something because it actually happens.
What was that song that came out back in like 2014? I know you want it.
These bloodlines.
Bloodlines, that was it, yes.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, that's it. It's like, hey, you say you don't want to, but I know you want to. And in this film, literally, we have somebody say, I don't want to, and then because he can read our mind, he hears, I think, actually, no, I really do want to. I want you to keep pushing. And yeah, so obviously that's bad because it means that if a man were to watch this film and take it seriously, he would think, oh, okay, so
like I did.
That woman who I speak to at the coffee shop all the time, who's constantly rejecting my advances, she really does want to date me. She's just constantly blowing me off because, she's a woman are weird like that. So yeah, in my opinion, that's the worst one. And that is all of my criticisms. Again, like I would say, just to reiterate, none of these are like big problems at the center of the whole film. They're not like massive through lines. They're just little things which I noticed.
Yeah.
And yeah, do you want to talk about the positives?
Well, I was just going to say one negative, which I'm surprised you didn't mention, which you actually found the line funny, but not the actual implication funny, which was the gay line when Nick said, I'm as gay as it gets. And I was like, yeah, that seems to me to be pretty offensive to, gay people, I guess. That they're actually, the implication is gay people are actually women, and they actually think like women, they actually talk like...
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, actually, that's fair, yeah.
That's pretty bad. And then also, again, you could argue it is offensive to men. Like, well, if you're sensitive and kind and all of that, well, you have to be gay. There's no way you couldn't be just like, like that, but straight. You have to be gay. So, yes, and of course it reinforces traditional gender norms, yes, which aren't that great, those gender norms. They should not be enforced. Like, well, if you're kind of sensitive, you have to be gay or a woman. Yeah, I don't think that should be the case, and that is something that, I think was a pretty bad line there in all of this. And that's funny. The worst thing wasn't actually sexist towards women. It's specifically anyway. That was the worst thing I found. But yes, I do. Again, when you're watching the movie, I didn't take much notice of that Marissa Tomei's said no, but actually she means yes. But now you're mentioning it, I'm like, oh yeah, of course, that is definitely the case. So yeah, bloodlines. Remember Miley Cyrus singing that with that guy?
Oh yeah,
that was great.
Oh yeah, goodness me, that was back when everyone knew that our culture had declined. I remember they just said, look, it's Miley Cyrus twerking on Robin Thicke penis.
Yes, that was it. That
was it. That was the moment where everyone knew it was over.
Yeah. Okay. So
that's when God decided to send a plague. It was like, okay, it's coming in 6 years' time. It's in the oven.
So much shit has happened since then. Like,
I know, yeah.
Maybe like when it was like 2014, 2015 around that time, and oh boy, things have really gone downhill since then. Anyway, I'm going to read from an article from who is this woman who I have borrowed this piece of text. It is Caroline Sied.
You got a site, Luke. Okay, come on, tell us the publisher.
It is the AV Club.
Oh yeah, I can know that.
Yeah, AV Club, When Romance Met Comedy is, I guess, the series, and it's talking about what women want. Anyway, so she says, that, well, of course, there are some positive points about this movie we've mentioned, the negative things, and overall it is kind of, the message, I guess, is, hey, women should be treated as human beings. It's not a great message to learn, really. But anyway, it is positive things, I guess, is a horrible toxic man learns how horrible and toxic he is. And it's somewhat, interesting in breaking down a few of the more harmful aspects of traditional masculinity. Most of the overt displays of sexism in the movie are coded as bad. The audience understands that Gibson's character, Nick Marshall, is an asshole. And when he warns a female colleague she might not want to take a bite of that breakfast pastry, or describes a professional acquaintance as a bitch on wheels, the audience gets the message. Yeah, this guy is bad for doing that. And yeah, I agree. Also, what is pointed out here, which I picked up on and I agree wholeheartedly, is this. It's a sharp commentary on how easily successful women can earn reputations for being the man-eating Darth Vader of the ad world, no matter how gently and supportively they give feedback to their male employees. In fact, it's Darcy's slight timidity about giving her opinion and speaking her mind that allows Nick to swoop in and steal her ideas as part of his plan to sabotage her career and steal her job. again, so this is something I see women on Twitter complain about a lot when, there's some Me Too thing, and there's lists, about what women, how shit a life women have in, regular office days, and one of them is that men get the credit for their ideas, men get listened to, and if they speak up or fight back, then she's a right bitch, she is. That kind of attitude is portrayed towards the women. They get a lot less leeway than men, and this movie actually, even though it doesn't say it explicitly, it does show that. It does show, look at this character that Helen Hunt is portraying. She apparently, again, is horrible, just what a bitch. But she's actually not. She's just, kind of normal. And that is something that, again, the overt sexism in society creates a narrative that makes it harder for women to do stuff. And, again, this movie does capture that quite well. So there you go. That's how this movie is a bit woke, if you will. What do you think about that, Michael?
No, yeah, I kind of agree. I think
you only kind of.
Well, I think definitely this film does. I mean, I've already said the idea of the film is kind of a good idea, that this person learns to understand what women want and therefore learns about his own sexism. I would just say, for me, the only problem I have with the film is that it's so over the top, and basically it's really just dealing with the most basic, brutish, chauvinistic of sexism. And
I mean, I'd say that's what a lot of, in terms of what I'm talking about, I think that is something that is quite common. That the thing I'm talking about with Helen Hunt's character being labelled like a bitch.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, the thing is, I just wonder whether or not this film would really. I mean, obviously the thing is, this film clearly came from. I've already said it's by a woman. I think it clearly came from a kind of place of wanting to actually communicate a message in that regard. Yeah, actually, I think when it came to that specific message, yes,
that's why this is
right.
A positive point. Yeah.
No, it was right. It was, it did a good job of showing that women can be not taken seriously in the workplace, and therefore, well done.
You just listened to anything I said.
What do you mean? I mean, I listened to what you said.
I mean, but it's it wasn't really about women being taken seriously. It was about women being treated.
So I know what you said. Yeah, okay, yeah. Women being treated. Yeah, I know what you meant by women being taken seriously. So it's like the whole Hillary Clinton thing. Nasty woman, proud. I'm a proud, nasty woman.
Yes.
It's so basically women being called uppity.
Yeah, well, it's that same thing. It's know your place. That kind of mentality that, of course, is people think in hierarchies in terms of, there should be specific genders or races at the top of this hierarchy, and they don't actually think it consciously. It's a subconscious thing. And so, yes, then obviously you have these phrases like uppity, and I think you mentioned Hillary Clinton's nasty woman thing. And again, it's I saw so many people on Twitter saying, how many times have women been called nasty for saying something like that? Oh God, that's will be the moment a lot of women wake up across this country and don't vote for Trump, and then he won.
But he won college-educated white women.
Did he win college-educated?
White women. Yeah, he won college. I remember it was on TYT, and Anna Kasparian was going mental about it.
I know he won. I know he won white women. Did he really win college-educated white women?
I think he did. Okay, let me look it up. I'm going to look it up. Okay, look, I've looked it up, and I can reveal that in fact the exit polls said that Trump won the majority of college-educated white women, but in fact the exit polls were wrong. For one thing, the exit polls said that 50% of the electorate was college-educated, but for that to be true, 97% of all college graduates in America would have to have voted, which obviously just, you don't ever get that kind of turnout. So basically the point being, the exit polls were wrong. So there was an exit poll, and the exit poll asked people these things, but obviously exit polls, they can be generally accurate, but this exit poll had some issues, and the exit poll found that he won college-educated white women, but he didn't. So don't worry, Luke. Your faith in college-educated white women can be rejuvenated.
Thank God for that. So those are some of the good points. Do you have anything else to say on gender politics in this movie? Because I got one more thing.
Okay, well, I just had one more thing too. So, Jinx, I guess just what do you? Because obviously, what I was saying is that when we're talking about the plot, and I said I'm kind of jumping ahead, but I just think I'll reiterate that I thought the message of this film should have been: you don't need to be able to read minds in order to know what women want. You just have to kind of listen to women and kind of understand that women are basically the same as men in some significant ways, and it's not like they speak some other language, and that the idea that men come from Mars and women come from Venus is wrong.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. And this leads into my point. That's what the movie does perpetuate, though. This theory that men are from, the therapist says that men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
Yes.
It does give this idea that men and women are fundamentally different. And, they are, they live in completely separate worlds, but you gotta be respectful. there was this point in the movie when Mel Gibson is right at the start, chatting to Marissa Tomei the first time he's asking her out, and she gets him to kind of commit to a date later on tomorrow, and the guy behind Mel Gibson says, "Sir, that was inspiring." And I was just thinking, right there, that's like, so all men want to be like Mel Gibson. Even a guy who looks nothing like Mel Gibson, who doesn't have the personality of Mel Gibson, he wants to be like Mel Gibson. Everybody wants to be like that kind of alpha male who, is from Mars essentially. So that is so you're right. That's why this movie could not have the message. Well, women and men aren't that different. You should just. You don't need to read women's minds to know what's going on. All you need to do is just listen to them, because that's not what the actual message of the movie is. Like, men and women are too different for that to happen, as evidenced by the characters and in this movie. So what do you think about that?
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, basically, this film didn't deliver that message, and I'm reminded of a quote by famous revolutionary in Burkina Faso, Thomas Sankara. He said, "I hear the roar of women's silence." And, of course, he was trying to find that women aren't listened to, and that's a problem. And ultimately, if this film really wanted to give an empowering message for women, and also not just an empowering message for women, but a message that would help men to be better men, then that message would be, don't, think that you have to understand what women believe, just listen to them. In fact, there's actually like a Tumblr joke where it's like a man saying, women are such mysteries, and then there's a woman going, well, actually, we just want, and then as she's saying it, she's cut off by the man saying, truly, they're like an enigma, and she's like, well, really, all we want is, and he's like, well, I guess we'll never know what women want. And that's basically it. Like, it's not hard. You just have, communication is key. It's like Homer Simpson says, the problem is communication. Well, too much communication.
Well, we shall get onto what women want in an article, Michael, which will, I think, prove your point. But first, I just want to talk about
is it people who review podcasts, is it people who review movies in podcast form?
Yes, for sure.
Thank God.
I was just thinking throughout this movie, by the way, the politics, how this would translate to modern day. And what I mean by that is, I think what from what I've seen on social media, this, regrettably, some women do think about politics in like their interpersonal lives. So they think that, for example, relating it to America right now, Bernie Sanders would be Mel Gibson, and Elizabeth Warren would be Helen Hunt. You get that? Yeah, Helen Hunt does all the work, and fucking Bernie just takes it. And I was thinking when that Nike ad was it was like, okay, this is such a, this would be, all the others feminists on Twitter, they would love that Nike ad. I think this movie is emblematic of white liberal feminism. I think you'd agree with that, wouldn't you? No. Yeah, which is very unfortunate. Again, what Nike are doing in that ad is they are using feminism to sell like Nike products. That's what they're doing. They're co-opting feminist language and how women's grievances, which are legitimate grievances, and then turning it into a way to sell products for money. And of course, those products are probably not made in a factory which pays the women who are working in that factory a good wage. And I think it's the case as well when political candidates adopt these kind of grievances that women rightly have in these workplaces, which I was talking about with Elizabeth Warren before, what she kind of did. It's like, okay, I get that, but that is not the foundation for a political campaign. And it's just like watching this movie in the event of so many, fucking hell, these Elizabeth Warren fans, Michael, on Twitter. It's just like,
I called Elizabeth Warren stans.
Yeah, the stans. Though
I'll never forget actually when there was that post by a woman, and she said like, I'm going to be mentioning Bernie Sanders. It was just after Bernie announced he was going to run. So I'm going to be mentioning Bernie Sanders to my therapist.
Yes.
And then somebody commented like, wouldn't it be good if everyone got therapy for free? And then he linked to Bernie Sanders saying he wanted therapy for free, and the woman responded, I'd rather have free maternal leave for mothers. And then the guy responded, well, have I got the candidate for you? And it linked to Bernie Sanders saying that he wanted free free maternal leave to mothers. And it's like, I know this is completely off track, but they genuinely don't care what Bernie Sanders actually advocates for.
No, this is the problem. It is all aesthetic. It is all what my interpersonal reactions then translate into politics, which is again completely wrong, because Bernie Sanders would be the candidate, even though he isn't a woman and Elizabeth Warren is. Bernie Sanders would be the candidate that helps women the most because of his policies, which matter the most. And again, like, I don't think Bernie Sanders would endorse like Nike using feminist language to sell Nike products.
Yeah.
That is, and this movie treats that as, just fine. Oh, that's what's happening. It's fine. Look at how good it is that women are, being listened to. And maybe that was the case back in 2000. It'd be nice for they mentioned like Sears was appealing to women, and it's like, oh, when Sears showed a softer side, they got 30% increase in sales because women were more likely to shop there. And then maybe that was the case in the 90s, a very neoliberal time in the early 2000s. That was okay. That's just the way things are. But I think looking back at it now with how, with politics, how it is nowadays, it does kind of be like, it's in a different era. And unfortunately, some people are still fine with, would be fine with that Nike ad airing today. Yeah. Even though that I think I would criticize that Nike ad, and a bunch of other people would for, again, co-opting feminist language to sell fucking running shoes. So yeah, that's it, basically. That's why I just wanted to say. I just mentioned it because of the amount of fucking Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders stuff that has been happening across social media, which I have seen, and it is depressing. So I wanted to let it out, Michael. I want to let my grievances out. Your
white male rage.
Yes, my
it always crops its head.
Yes,
up.
my white male rage is coming to the fore. Anyway, I want to now talk about, Michael, what women actually do want. And this is completely serious. This is an article from Suzanne Deggs-White, who is a PhD, and it's titled 15 Things Women Want from Men in Their Lives. And yes, the list absolutely includes good sex between partners. So we shall go. What women want, Michael, apparently is open communication. You were right about communication, Michael. It was pretty key. They want honesty. They want trust and trustworthiness. They want people to take responsibility. And, women need men to show kindness, patience, understanding, empathy, and compassion. Friendship between men and women is also desired. Emotional maturity is essential. It's okay to have some childish fun when appropriate, but it's important for women and men to behave like grown-ups when it is time to do so. Being supportive to women in your life can do a world of good. Sensitivity coupled with validation of your partner's experiences are essential. Bring adventure and excitement into the relationship. Companionship and partnership go along with friendship and create the glue that keeps most long-term relationships moving forward. Saying I love you may not be easy. These words can be highly charged. Sadly, some people believe that saying them makes them vulnerable and more likely to be hurt. Your partner, though, deserves to be made aware of your love. If saying that these words isn't going to happen, make sure you show your partner love in ways that matter most to her. What do you think, Michael? Do you think you do that?
Yeah, I do. I think I do. Sure, by giving her this good dick. Did it mention good dick?
Here we go. As for sex, women ask that men don't make everything about sex. So I think you just failed on that one, pal. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, I make everything about sex. That is my problem. But if making everything about sex is bad, well, sue me.
Okay. Sexual activities that are geared to pleasing your partner, not just yourself, are what your partner's needs you to provide. So yes, basically, what I just read there, which I thought was interesting. I typed in what women want and found this article and was kind of, okay, these are the answers. And from reading all that, I just have to assume the answer is don't be a dick, essentially. I'm just reading all this and be honest, open communication, trustworthiness. It's like, yeah, this is just normal. I think basically, Michael, the question of what women want, I choose from this article, is just what everybody wants, really.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that is also what I want. I want all of those things.
Yeah, which is respect.
RESPECT.
So I think we've solved it. And I think we've done it. I think just treat everybody with respect, regardless of their gender.
In the words of Anal Cunt, I respect your feelings. I respect your gender. I respect your existence. I will always be tender. I respect your feelings as a woman and a human too.
Very, very classy. Very classy. And who was that by?
Anal Cunt. They also have another song called Nothing But a Hole, which goes, open your mouth, you're nothing but a hole. Bend over, you're nothing but a hole.
That's
Spread your legs, you're nothing but a hole. You want to be loved, but you're nothing but a hole.
That's a slightly different tone to their last one. Yeah.
But then the flip side is they have more progressive songs like Hitler was a sensitive man.
Yeah, maybe he was. Maybe maybe that's why he went down the path he did. No one actually ever said to him, "Hey, How you need to...
Or maybe, okay, this is my theory about Hitler. Okay, hear me out. Maybe he was starring in a romantic comedy and he thought, people kept trying to push lots of Jewish stuff into the romantic comedy, and Hitler thought, why is they trying to push all this Jewish stuff? And, again, same as Mel Gibson. That's what happens. These romantic comedies are responsible for so much hurt in the world.
I'd love to see Hitler in a romantic comedy. That'd be great. I think that would be funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think we should conclude now, Michael, on what women want. We have, we've been through it and we have actually found out what women do want. So this is big news. And anyway, shall you conclude first?
Well, also, I think this is the perfect time to plug our relationship advice podcast, which I think it's fair to say we are more than qualified to run. Anyway, yes, this film is... You have to split it into like two things, which is the messaging and the actual quality of it as a romantic comedy. As a romantic comedy, the romance is okay, but it's kind of hindered by the fact that the plot structure in terms of his relationship to this woman doesn't really work, because obviously at the same moment that she finds out he betrays her is also the moment where she decides that she loves him, and it doesn't really work. The comedy really isn't there, especially compared to something like, say, Notting Hill, which we looked at and we weren't wild about Notting Hill, but Notting Hill had quite a few funny moments in it. This really didn't have any apart from just goofy, stupid moments. Yeah, the romance just wasn't great. The plot was a missed opportunity, and the messaging was a mixed bag, but I would say it didn't get much beyond simply sexism bad, which is not unimpressive, but for the 2000s, it's kind of what you would expect. And when you look more deeply, I don't think this film comes out of a feminist analysis unscathed. And if you really wanted a film that was going to be good in that regard, it would have to do a lot better than this. So again, part of me, I almost feel quite unoffended by this film, and therefore I don't want to give it too low. But if I'm being absolutely honest, it's worse than Aquaman. It's better than Ocean's 12.
Okay.
That's what is it that women would want? Okay.
Well, I think over...
And by the way, that translates to a 4 out of 10.
Okay, fair enough. A 4 out of 10. I'm going to bump it up a bit higher because I think it's going to be a 4.5 out of 10 for me. I'll just say that off the bat because, again, I would say that I think there is a bit more than just sexism is bad in the messaging, because I mentioned, of course, the...
but I was ignoring you because you know what you were saying about how communication doesn't really matter.
Yes.
Yeah, I took that on board, so I'm just not going to pay attention to anything you say.
Helen Hunt, yes, she does get unfairly labelled because she is a woman, as a bitch, and yes, she doesn't get credit for her ideas, which again I think is the case in workplace. And obviously there are bad things that this whole idea of using mind reading to get a woman into bed is a pretty shit thing to do, and Mel Gibson does that consistently. And yeah, I'm not sure you could say, well, he learns that sexism is bad. Like, the end point is enough to cover what has happened before, what he has done before, essentially. Probably not enough. But again, it's a romantic comedy, so what are you going to do? And yes, of course, the movie is bloated and isn't structured well, and it's not funny either. So yeah, I guess 4.5 out of 10 seems pretty fair. Again, it's not as offensive as it could have been. And I guess it deserves praise for that. But on top of it, it is quite dated by the attitude that I think was around certainly back 20 years ago, which was men are from Mars, women are from Venus. They are fundamentally different, which, again, as you said, this could be a good movie if the ending or the conclusion was no, that's not the case, but that is what the movie definitely promotes, which is a shame. But again, I guess it's of its time. What can you say? So yeah, 4.5 out of 10 for me, Michael, of what women want. And what are we doing next week?
Next week, we are doing a classic, a film which everybody has been clamouring for us to review. And that film, if you're wondering, is a little piece known as Mulan.
Mulan, yes, Mulan. So hopefully
the original Mulan.
Yes, the original Mulan. So I don't know what the state of...
The ancient Chinese folktale. We're going to have a Chinese woman show up, and she's going to tell the story from oral tradition. That's the original Mulan, not that terrible animated Disney remake.
Yeah, with Eddie Murphy. Yeah, that'd be awful.
Yeah,
no, very culturally insensitive.
Wait, I bet everyone's excited when we're going to do the original Troy, where we're going to have an ancient Greek person show up and recite Homer's Odyssey from memory.
Yeah,
we're real hipsters.
Okay, well, anyway, join us next week for Mulan. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Luke.
Thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.